Okay, so Adam Silver, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, was on the Old Man and Three podcast, JJ Redick's podcast, and he was calling out NBA color commentary. Is the commentary around the league a little too casual? Let's hear what the commissioner has to say, and we'll react to it on the other side of this.
We can all do a better job. And again, I'm not just pointing to the media here, is talking more about the game. And I also, my frustration a bit, I think sometimes that the color commentary in our games gets reduced to this team wanted it more, or, this team tried harder, as opposed to like, there's really complex defenses. Like, what's the offense? Like, why is this team losing the way they are? Like, why is this team successful? Explain what the pick and roll is. Explain, it's funny, as our friend Chris Paul is always saying, what does ice mean? What does blue mean? Like, explain what's happening on the court, because I think there is this sense that, unlike in football, where the coaches are viewed as these field generals going out there with the complex schemes, then in basketball, there's a sense that it's just about athleticism, somehow, the coach's job is just to get the guys to play hard, as opposed to these. And again, you could speak so much better to this than I can, but these incredibly sophisticated defenses, offenses. I think, just use another network example, I think Kenny Smith, when he goes to that board, is a great example of helping explain the game visually, graphically to people to understand what's happening on the floor. So again, not necessarily knock on the media and of our partners, because the league has to start with the league office, but let's talk more about basketball. And then the other stuff I'm fine with, like have fun with the guys and, the fashion show as the guys are walking into the arena, all that. I'm not against it, but the game.
Yeah. The debates around the GOAT and I know exactly.
All right, Sherrod, what do you think, man? Is the commentary around the league too casual? NBA Commissioner Adam Silver says yes. What say you, man?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the commissioner using Kenny Smith as an example of how it should be done. And I agree with him in that regard, that the way Kenny does it is the way you ideally want it to be done. But the bigger issue that he's not touching at all is the people who are doing the color commentary are hired by the various teams. So let's talk about the diversity within the hiring practices. Let's have that conversation, Commissioner, because if you want to bring about real substantive change, how about getting players, or excuse me, if you're going to go with former players, how about getting former players who are actually in the league, who actually did some things, who actually had to make some of those split decisions, who could speak about the decisions that they made. And last I checked, the alumni base of the NBA isn't all that different than the current base of the NBA. It's predominantly people of color. And yet when you look at most of the color commentators, they don't look like you or me. They don't. And so let's have that conversation, which I know we're not going to have, because that is what we call the necessary but uncomfortable conversation that if you are the commissioner, you don't have to have. When we start getting to the point where we can speak frankly about that type of stuff, then we can see some change. Because he's right. I mean, many times when I'm watching NBA games, I put on the closed caption and I put it on mute because there seems to be a lot of pom-pom waving and cheering. And that's what a lot of teams want in their color commentary. They want them to be fans of the team. They want them to go team go, instead of giving me intelligent, insightful commentary about what the heck is happening on the play. Like if the team that I'm covering, if my small forward gets beat on a backdoor cut, I should be able to explain where they went wrong in that backdoor cut and explain it in a way that makes sense to the average basketball fan. The problem that, and Adam, he doesn't talk about specifically, but the issue comes down to this: how can we better engage the casual fan? How can we give them an experience that makes sense for them, that they can understand what's going on, and actually walk out of the arenas feeling as though they know a little bit more about this game than they did when they walked in? That doesn't happen. Most people go to a game, they see who won, they see who scored a bunch of points, and that's pretty much the extent of their knowledge bank being filled. What he's talking about, I think, is a great from a conceptual standpoint. But let's talk about the hiring practices that create those positions where this is happening. How is that going? Is there enough? Are they expanding the pool of folks that they're considering for these jobs in a way that would allow you to have people who actually played the game, like Kenny Smith, who can speak about some of the things that are happening, things that he experienced as a player, things that he had to make split-second decisions to the point where that talk about it is not something he spends a whole lot of time looking over some charts and analytics. That's muscle memory because he lived that. And so when Adam is ready to have that conversation, I'm willing. I'm ready for that. But until then, you just flapping your gums, Mitch. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that point in terms of especially media, but also there's a lot of tentacles that tie into the league in which it's not representative of the talent in the league. And so absolutely that conversation needs to be had. I don't necessarily agree with the commissioner, though, in terms of the commentary being casual. I think there's certain teams broadcast where they are more insightful and they do teach you the game. One in particular, I got to shout out my guy Antonio Daniels of the Pelicans podcast. He's been a friend of the program. If I'm watching a Pelicans game or if I'm listening to NBA radio, most of the time I'm listening to get Antonio Daniels' insight. And you're right, Sherrod, I definitely agree with you in that. There are other teams who want you to do more pom-pom waving, less criticism, and less dissecting of the game. They want you to be more promotional in nature. So there's certainly an issue there, but if you look outside of traditional broadcasts, I mean, you got guys doing a million, great things. You have Nikias and Steve Jones. They're on NBA.com now. JJ Redick is starting to get more and more in front of the camera. You have Tim Legler doing different media. So I think there are people who are a bit more analytical focused, and those diehards, those who want a deeper insight into the game, know where to find those people. But for the traditional media platforms, I mean, to me, they're just part of the NBA marketing machine to cater to that casual audience and talk about, look at what Tatum's wearing to the game, or what are the sneakers that they're wearing, and, what is Quavo doing here, there, and tying in the culture to all of that. So I think all of that is part of the NBA marketing machine. So I don't expect on Inside the NBA for somebody to break down film for me. That'd be nice, but maybe they use, one of their ancillary platforms for that measure. But to me, on the ESPN broadcast or the TNT broadcast, the way they rush through the pregame, the halftime, and so on and so forth, I don't even know if they have time to really break it down in a way that the casual fan would understand and also appreciate.
Yeah. And I think that's part of why Adam's words, they don't resonate the way you would think the commissioner's words or something like this would, because people who are in the industry, who are putting together these different programs and doing that work, they know that there's a lot of things that Adam just completely glossed over or didn't touch at all in that. And one of them certainly is the fact that, you have people who are doing that other than Kenny Smith. And you mentioned Antonio Daniels. I got a chance to get to know him pretty good when for one of the former Celtics assistant coaches, Jay Larranaga, who played with him in college. Antonio came around a few times, and he's very knowledgeable, and he has the ability to articulate that knowledge in a way that is easily consumed. And I think that part of the challenge is that most teams, they're not really looking for that. They're looking for someone that they can put in the broadcast who's got a name that people are going to tune in to see. And they don't really care what comes out of the lips of that name. They just care about the face and the fact that it's a name. And, I find that, again, it's very hit or miss when it comes to color commentary. There's some who are really good, and others you're just like, wait, what are you doing here? And so you just kind of got to roll with the punches. But I wish Adam would just kind of do a little bit deeper dive from a research standpoint on this particular subject and come back with some, I think, tangible suggestions. Because to me, it's real easy to point out the problems when you're a leader, but do you offer any solutions? Are you offering any options to consider that can eliminate this rather than you just simply saying, this is wrong? I mean, if I say, hey, there's too much dirty water in city XYZ. If that's all I got to offer, what the hell am I really telling you that you don't already know? Yeah. Let me come up with some ideas to make this better. And I'm hoping that Adam will at least give it some thought, or at least get some people around him who will look into this to see what can they do to address this. Because I do think it is an issue that at a minimum is worth talking about and just really seeing if there's a way to improve that particular part of the broadcast experience.
Rod, CP, you both hit it on the head. And, CP, to your point about like guys that are in here, like JJ Redick, Nekias Duncan, Antonio, like those guys do a phenomenal job, but there's also independent content creators that do a great job too. Like shout out to our guys at Nick's Film School. They do a great job breaking it down. We got a whole bunch of like Instagram pages that are breaking down plays and teaching us things new every day. Like to Sherrod's point, if Adam Silver is serious about that, he can go outside of the traditional media and go to the route that everyone's calling, even us right now, what we're doing, new media, right? And you can go reach out to them and say, hey, why don't we bring some of these guys in, do guest appearances, break down this game, because they're seeing stuff from a different angle that we don't get, that's not covered by everybody else. But then to your point, Sherrod, like having a name out there and everything else, I think there's also a part of like when you tune into like television that these guys like to keep it simple and keep it easy. See, we spoke to Amin El Hassan not too long ago, right? And we talked about the way new media is coming about and like how like we can be insightful and stuff like that. And we also talked about how some stuff is curated to be very simple and easy because that's what it is. It doesn't take that much time, effort to put a lot of work into it and to do the research. And so that's also kind of this thing that we have right here where it's like, all right, so they'll just say, hey, they wanted it more tonight, and then we can call it the end of the day where it's like, does somebody really want to know what a double drag screen looks like? Does anybody really want to know what horns looks like and all these type of sets? And maybe there's people that do. Like, I want to learn that type of stuff, right? But then it's like, if you're thinking about the casual stuff and casual fans who want to just tune in and be like, I just want to see like a good game, here's some funny stuff, and then tune out and then keep it pushing for the rest of my week. Like, we also got to consider those people who are there too. True. And I think that's like when Adam Silver says it, I think you can get both of them. You got to know how to interchange it, but don't just come out here and say like, it's just, oh, well, we need more of this and offer no solution, as Sherrod said.
The power to change it.
He legitimately does.
Everyone reports to you.
What's that?
Everyone reports to you, Adam. So.
Yeah. They've got the ability to change it. I mean, their YouTube is popping, the TikTok is popping, Twitter, Instagram. He's got the ability, give those people a platform, give them the microphone and let them do what they do. But just to me, just the way the NBA is marketed, it just runs counter to his argument because they want to bring in that Gen Z fan. The Gen Z fan is not watching the games. They want the snackable clips. They want the bite size. They want to see the fashion and the culture, and they want to see what Drewski's saying. And
9-minute highlights, baby. 9-minute highlights.
They want the highlights. And so, it's a very interesting dynamic there.
The last thing I'll say about this is that I also don't like that he said, like, well, sometimes, we don't want to hear that they wanted more. You know what? At the end of the day, sometimes it is that the other team wanted it more. These guys are also human, man. Like 82 games regular season, like, it's a job to them. I'm not saying like I understand like the whole load management stuff and how it's controversial, but at the end of the day, if someone's having a bad day, a bad week, and it's like, yo, these guys are traveling from one place to one place, and it's like, oh man, this is a really long season. Do I really care about game 32 right now tonight? Or do I just want to get home and just chill and relax? And like, even though the players won't say it on camera because that will just hurt the product, like that definitely is a legitimate thing. So I think there is a valid space for saying, hey, tonight the other team just wanted it more, outside of just being out executed.
Yeah, and you see it happen all the time. I mean, one team is diving for every loose ball, the other team dives for every other loose ball, and don't get none of them. Turnovers at half court, where rather than reach and try to foul a guy, they just look at him and be like, "Okay, got that layup." Offensive rebounds where there's 3 on one team standing around, and then one guy on the other team just come in and swoop it and put it back in. Come on, we see that all the time.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's, I love Adam, but sometimes it's like, bro, come on, really? Really? Really?